What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Al Johnson Show. Thank you all for watching and tuning in. And today, it's time to give you guys my overall thoughts and opinions on Season 1 of HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be updated for more content, or you want to keep following along this journey, and always to watch whenever new videos drop, then please be sure to do the following. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell to be updated whenever a new video drops. And let's begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, The Last of Us, the TV show adaptation of arguably one of the all-time greatest video games ever made. Now, I remember the talk of the town that was The Last of Us for years. I even remember basically back in like 2015, 2016, what have you, when the remastered version came out on PS4 and how it captivated the world. I remember thinking to myself, or actually remember hearing people talk about how it would be a great movie one day. It would be a phenomenal movie. Only problem with that was, how do you try to condense basically 20 hours of gameplay into a 2.5 hour movie and make it seamless or make it tie together well? It wouldn't work, but they still kept trying and kept trying. And everybody was fan casting who would play Joe and Ellie in this supposed movie. People have even famously fan casted the dude who played Jaime Lannister on Game of Thrones as Joe, and some chick, I can't remember her name, Caitlin Diva, how you ever say her name, cast her as Ellie, since she has that bit of a young face. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Had to sneeze off camera. It was quite nasty. But anyway, that's what I was saying. So yeah, people wanted those people to be Joe and Ellie, and people have even either memed or even been like, that's a nice argument to be made. How the Logan movie, the Wolverine movie starring Hugh Jackman, was practically, in a way, a Last of Us movie just with superpowers. How you had Hugh Jackman basically as Joe, and what's her name? Daphne Keane. She was practically Ellie, just with superpowers. How that was basically a Last of Us movie. And for years, it always talked about, oh, they're going to do a movie or what have you. But then, 3 years ago, during the pandemic, was it? Yeah, basically, I believe it was, 3 years ago it was 2 years ago during the pandemic, how finally HBO and Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog announced that they were going to adapt Last of Us into a full-length TV show, and how they had went and got Craig Mason, who, yes, he's now more known for writing and directing the miniseries Chernobyl, but for those that don't know the history about Craig Mason, he also directed stuff like Superhero Movie, that awful, parody movie about the superhero genre back in the 2000s. And I believe, I could be wrong, he also directed, he also wrote the Hangover movies. I could be wrong about that. And so he was tasked with writing and executive producing this TV show adaptation. And then, for the casting, you have Pedro Pascal as Joe, who was returning to HBO after playing Prince Oberyn in Game of Thrones, and of course he's the Mandalorian on Disney+. And of course, also he was in other stuff too. He was in Equalizer 2. He was Maxwell Lord in Wonder Woman 1984, and I believe he was the villain in Equalizer 2. And also, he was in the second Kingsman movie. Bella Ramsey would controversially play Ellie. And I say controversially because people in the hardcore fan community of Last of Us was not a fan of this particular casting. I mean, yes, there were some who were like, why this dude is Joe? But everybody, even up till premiere date and throughout the run of the show, kept egging on and on about how Ellie was not casted well. But whatever. But Bella Ramsey, who also was in Game of Thrones as, what's her name? Lady Mormont. She also on HBO. So basically, also she was returning to HBO. And also, you have in guest spots, you got Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation as Bill. You had Murray Bartlett as Frank. You had Melanie Linsky from Showtime's Yellow Jackets as Kathleen. But in very, very important details, you would have Troy Baker, the voice of Joe, in a role, basically playing the right-hand man to David, the cannibal. You have Merle Dandridge, who came back as Marlene, who she voiced in the game. You had Jeffrey Pierce, who was the voice of Tommy in the game as Kathleen's right-hand man, Perry. And very, very notably, you got Ashley Johnson, the voice of Ellie, playing Anna Williams, Ellie's mother, in a very poetic role, if you will, a very poetic in nature. And also, I almost forgot, you got Gabriel Luna as Tommy. If you don't know Gabriel Luna, he was Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And also he was in Terminator Dark Fate. And so, going into the show, expectations were high. So many expectations my expectations especially were high because I played Last of Us during lockdown when it started a year before the show was announced. But the biggest hill to climb for Last of Us was for my pops, who's a massive Last of Us fan. Now, I can't speak for him. I can only speak for myself. And for me personally speaking, the first season of, especially the first season of HBO's The Last of Us, to me, is personified. I'm gonna say a personified classic. There are so many elements of this show where they accurately recreated and structured the show to where it's basically like you're seeing the gameplay come to life. Obviously with few notable changes here and there. I mean, think about it. In the pilot episode, with the death of Sarah played by Thandie Newton's daughter, Nico, just the way they captured that specific death scene. If that death scene doesn't hit or hook people in who never played the game, or even people who have played the game, the show doesn't work. And just the way the post-apocalyptic world looks, the way Pedro Pascal looks, Bella Ramsey, what's her name, Anna Torv as Tess, who you might have seen her in Fringe and all certain things. But to me, what really hit it for me was the acting, the set design, the costume design, the makeup design, and admittedly and selfishly, the attention to detail to recreating stuff from the game. Because like I said, there was the death of Sarah, then of course there was the section in the museum with the clickers, which looked phenomenal. Of course there was like certain lines and moments straight from the game in live action, to where you could look up on YouTube so many, and I mean so many side-by-side comparisons about how accurate lines are, how accurate things happen, even down to like certain angles or camera shots, to where it was like, oh my god, this is like watching the game for real. So obviously, yes, I loved this show, and I loved the characters, and I loved the world, and I loved the way it looked. Now, of course, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Were there things about it that I didn't like? Yes. For starters, sometimes I felt like some of the times the patience of episodes got a bit wonky. Sometimes it was hard for me to divorce separating the show from the game, because I'm so used to playing the game that I wanted to see it recreated and want to like enjoy it. But also I was like, well, I have to enjoy it on its own merit than just focus on, well, if it's not as good as the game, then what's the point? Because that would be a tough thing to sell. So that was, and admit this, that was a me thing. Like I said, as far as like nitpicks, sometimes the pacing of the episodes will be off. Sometimes certain things that was done in the game was not in live action for adaptation purposes. Although I admit I would have liked to have seen certain things in this first season that was great in the game. I would have liked to have seen it. Also, me personally, I do wish there were more infected. Now, of course, you know, just you gotta take it for what it is. But I do wish there was more infected. I also do wish that sometimes certain writing for characters was better. Also, sometimes when you don't, obviously, the best way to use CG is to look at it and I think, oh, that's a total green screen. But then when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, it's like, oh, that's CG. But sometimes when things are CG, they are kind of, in a way, a bit noticeable and ironically video game-ish. And also, I would say for me, my biggest nitpick of Last of Us Season 1 was that even though I understood the episode's length and stuff, I do wish maybe there was maybe 1 or 2 more episodes, so that way things would really be more fleshed out. Because it almost seemed like watching Last of Us Season 1, it was like watching a speedrun version of the cutscenes in the game. Now, granted, again, I knew going in, I'm not going to get to see everything from the game in live action. There were going to be things that were going to be removed or things was going to be replaced. I knew that. But I did kind of wish that maybe, just maybe, things were more fleshed out. Maybe characters were a bit more fleshed out. Maybe certain buildings or locations were stretched out and just, oh, we're here, and now on to the next one. But that's just, again, it's like, it's just me nitpicking at things, because overall, guys, Season 1 of Last of Us was really phenomenal. It was emotional in the right places. It was heavy hitting in the right places. It was funny in the right places. It was dramatic in the right places. And most important of all, it was really well done. And goes to show that, hey, Hollywood, you want to do video game adaptations right? Then look at the source material like you would comic books. Hire the creatives from the game as consultants and listen to them. Work with them. Because by having Neil Druckmann on, who basically directed Last of Us 1, and have him oversee certain things as far as the characters and the sets, having him on board and having some of the actors from the game appear made the experience as a whole really work. And now, after that, ladies and gentlemen, we now begin. Sorry, my dog being a nuisance. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, to me, Last of Us Season 1 was a hit, and now we begin the long road for Season 2, which I'm really looking forward to. And folks, that's it for now. Go watch Last of Us Season 1 however you can. Obviously, watch it on HBO Max or watch it on HBO when it's airing, even though it's done already. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it for my review of Season 1 of The Last of Us. It's really good. And thank you all for watching. As always, guys, thank you all for watching. My name is Al Johnson, and you're not. Deuces.